So I used to hate myself. I know, I heard a couple people go, oh. And I'm not talking about like, I don't really care for her. We have all felt that about someone, right? I'm talking about like a toxic disdain for myself. It was a dark place in here. It was unpleasant. So I felt like a victim of everyone and of the universe. And it really ticked me off, right? Such an attractive combination, an angry victim. Anyone ever known one of those? I know it's a rare combination, I think. But I was definitely an angry victim. And even being one ticked me off more, so it just kept, you know, fulfilling itself. So when I was 13 years old, I became a full-blown using drug addict. Insert sigh. So from there on, with the angry victim using addict syndrome that I had going, as you can imagine, my relationships pretty much sucked. My finances, as I grew older and had to manage finances, or not in this case, sucked. Everything was dramatically bad, and there was more and more drama in my life as I got older. This is who I was then. So that toxic disdain thing. Remember Bradshaw? Some of us are old enough to know Bradshaw. He talked about addiction. And what he talked about was this shame that is always beneath addiction. There is a, what does he call it? He calls it a deep, internalized shame that gives rise to distorted thinking. And I'm thinking, even today, as I know plenty of you have not been addicts in your life, that still you can relate to the shame. That kind of thing that leads to distorted thinking, right? So the good thing for me is that around 19 years old, I met this wonderful man who was a professor at my college who taught me meditation and unknowingly taught me science mind principles, though neither of us knew it was science mind principles. Later we saw each other at a science mind center, not surprisingly. But he taught me that I was responsible for my reality with my thinking. And he taught me to meditate. Two very important things. And at that point, my life began to hover as opposed to continuing to go down. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've been on this trajectory from 13 years old that just got more and more painful, more and more sad and angry and dramatic. And so when I started meditating and started looking at how might I be responsible, how might I be helping at least to create my reality, my experience, I sort of like, you know, paused at that level of suffering, way the heck down here, right? And so then, flash forward years later, now 29 and a half years later, I got clean and sober. July 31st of this year will be 30 years. One day at a time. And I have to say that the rather good news, which you may have guessed, is I don't feel that way about myself anymore. Yeah, thank God. Thank God, thank me, thank these rooms, thank other rooms. I mean, really. So today, I would have to say, I adore myself. Now, I don't think I'm better than anyone here at all, but I do think I rock. Yay! Now you may figure out that means I think you rock as well, but we won't go into that today. You can just assume that's true, that you rock. Awesomeness is what we're made of. Now, I can't say I never feel bad. I can't say I never suffer. I can't say I don't have any more shame at all. I can't say any of those things. But I can say that I have learned something very important. And my summary of my years on the spiritual path, consciously learning and growing and becoming this person who really adores my sweet, wonderful self. There's my summary is this. If I am believing a lie, if I am, oh, that's, well, you can do it that way. If I am suffering, if I am in that toxic place of suffering, I am believing a lie. That's my summary. That's my entire book. It's one sentence. If I am suffering with a toxic kind of suffering, the reason I say that is because grief is kind of its own little planet or universe, grief. And grief needs to move through us. Or it's going to wreak havoc, it's going to show up as something else later, right? So grief is an exception. And my experience of grief is when I really let myself dive in and feel it, it's kind of beautiful, right? So I'm going to leave grief alone on that one. But the rest of the time, if I am feeling really bad about myself or anyone else, then I am believing a lie. I can tell myself a lie and not believe it, right? I can go, oh, yeah, right, as if. It's just nothing. So it's not just telling myself a lie, it's telling myself a lie and believing it. So I would say that is true for you. If you are feeling bad, and I really stress about yourself or anyone, I'm talking about anyone here, then you are believing a lie. This is good news and bad news. I know some of you are going, anyone? Because I know some people. Yeah. So here's the thing that's really awesome is the truth is way bigger than the lie that we believe that makes us suffer. The truth is bigger and is true whether we believe it or not. A lie, you have to convince yourself over and over again. You have to believe it over and over again. Oh yeah, that's true, I suck. Yes, I'm not good enough because. Oh yes, I have to tell myself over and over for it to stick. But the truth, I am made of the infinite love of the divine. That is a bigger statement. That is a true statement, and truth has power in it. So that's the good news. The good news is all our years of practicing to learn to believe these lies are undone much more quickly and easily than the time it took for us to come to believe the lies. Do you know what I'm saying? So you come here, you take classes, you see practitioners, you do all these wonderful things that we have being in community together with people who see your divinity and know and understand it. And that turns and shifts. It's a beautiful thing. There's this really great statistic that I love. Quantum physicists, my favorite in all of our training was quantum physics. This is what they say. Quantum physics says, what we see with our senses, what we experience is, are you ready for this? Yes. I was going to see who said now, and he said yes. Okay, so what we see and sense with our experience from where we are is 1/2 of 1/1,000,000th of 8% of what is happening. Wow. What we sense and experience in the world is 1/2 of 1/1,000,000th of 8% of what is happening. What? And so what I'm suggesting is that you stop looking at that particular 1/2 of 1% that is the lie and turn to that bigger truth. That's my invitation to you this morning, right? So you return to the truth. one way that's a trick for this, if you're wondering, well, what is the truth, is you look to the flip side of the lie. Oh, I'm too, what's an example?
Old.
I'm too old. Ah, that's a good one. Anyone else? I'm too old to try that new thing, start a new career, yeah, I'm too old. Well, not in the reality of your divinity, you're not. You're just a little pumpkin. You're just going to continue on as an infinite presence. After this particular shell on loan, this temple on loan, is finished with this particular round. We're not done here. We're maybe done in this reality in that 1/2 of 1/1,000,000th of 1% of what is actually happening. So my question to you is, where have you been believing a lie? Where in your life have you been telling yourself a lie about yourself or someone? And then what is that truth that lives on the flip side that is much bigger? And to anchor this with a story, we have my...
Oh, but you didn't teach them this.
Oh, right, my mantra.
You have to teach them the practice.
Yeah, thank you. See, I am really blessed. More than you can know. So, I love this mantra that I picked up during my years with Don Miguel Ruiz. Didn't come from him, actually, directly, but coulda. But I love this. So this is my mantra that I remind myself that I use when I'm in a dark place of the liar, right? So I want you to bring to mind, close your eyes if you're comfortable with that or whatever, and bring to mind that experience I just invited you to look at. Where have you been telling yourself a lie? Like, where have you been suffering in yourself, about yourself or another? And I want you to imagine that that part of you that tells yourself that lie is right in front of you. And then there is this deep, sacred teaching of what to say to that voice. So please repeat after me. Take a deep breath and say, liar, liar, pants on fire.
Liar, liar, pants on fire. Liar, liar.
One more time.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Thank you.
So, in this journey, we're basically talking about this journey from shame to freedom. And being aware of the liar is a huge part of that. And there's actually a movie out there that really depicts this beautifully. Some of you might have heard of this movie. It's called Dumbo. Anyone? They're actually going to remake it, I heard. But so I'm assuming probably most of you didn't just recently watch this movie, correct? Yeah. Melissa and I did get a chance to watch it not that long ago, and I was struck by the spiritual journey, the metaphor of the story of Dumbo. So I'll first briefly remind you how it goes. So there's this little elephant named Dumbo, and he's born in the circus. His mom is Mrs. Jumbo. That actually makes him Dumbo Jumbo. They never point that out. Yeah, so little Dumbo is born, and elephants have big ears, we all know that. But Dumbo is born with these freakishly large ears. So that's my kind of liar take on that, right? Because as far as Mrs. Jumbo is concerned, Dumbo is perfect. He's perfect. He's the most beautiful thing she's ever seen. The other elephants, not so kind, right? They taunt and torment little Dumbo Jumbo, Mrs. Jumbo, until she finally goes off on them. She just goes crazy, and they cart her off to elephant jail. So little Dumbo's all by himself. So talk about a reason to kind of activate the liar, right? There's something wrong with me. I'm defective, this little guy, because he's lost his mom because of it, you know, and all the other elephants are making fun of him. So he's all by himself until help comes along in the form of a tiny little, possibly alcoholic mouse named Timothy. Timothy comes along and says, no one else will even talk to Dumbo. Timothy comes along and says, hey dude, let's party. So they do, they go out drinking one night at the circus, and they didn't have 30 years. So then the next morning they wake up, Timothy and Dumbo wake up a tree. They're up a tree, have no idea how they got there. But Timothy, in spite of the alcoholic haze, figures it out. He goes, wait a minute, dude, those ears of yours, they're magical. You could fly because of those ears. Now, Dumbo has the liar activated, right? I'm no good, I'm horrible. So he can't hear that. When Timothy says, you're magical, you have this wonderful thing, Dumbo's like, nope, no I don't, no I don't. So Timothy has to make up a story. It's like a bridge from the liar to the truth. He has to make up a story. In this case, it's the magic feather, remember that? So if you hold the magic feather, then you can fly, right? So that's like this bridge to get Dumbo to the truth, because he can't hear it. And it works. It works for a while, until Dumbo is about to perform in front of the entire circus for the first time, and he drops his little magic feather. Now Timothy's with him, because they're always together, and so in a moment like this, only one thing to do, try it again, tell the truth. This time, Dumbo can hear it. And he flies all over the circus, and he's a big hero, and his mom gets to get out of jail, because now he's a hero, so that's it. That's the story of Dumbo. Cool story, right? Yeah, and when Melissa and I saw this story, we were both really relating, right? Everyone can relate to that journey, and that is the journey, too, from shame to freedom. But there's a lot of different things in it. And so when I saw it, I realized, wow, okay, I really relate to Dumbo, because like Dumbo, I have a thing about my appearance that has sparked, the liar has sparked shame in me. I describe myself as gender flexible. No, actually now I describe myself as gender rich, I forget. Now, Melissa came up with this term, gender rich, because like there's a whole lot of gender going on here. So that's what I am. If I go to a checkout counter and the person doesn't know me and she says, can I help you, ma'am? I'm actually surprised. Like I expect her to say, can I help you, sir? Like that's more common. And women's bathrooms? Those are really fun. That's like super fun. I like to have Melissa come with me to show that I'm like pre-approved. And also if I do this, like, see, boy, girl, so I smile, and then I stick out what little I have, and I've got my chaperone, and that's how I go to the bathroom. Yeah. So I made that work for myself, yeah. I can still remember the very first time I lived alone. I was 23 years old. I was living alone for the first time in my life. So for the first time in my life, I was in my own space. Do you know what I mean? Like outside of other people's expectations or pictures or stories about me. And that was the first time that I remember saying to myself, you know, I feel like very androgynous. Like I'm male and female and both, neither. Like that was the first time I kind of said that to myself, because my experience is I'm biologically female, I'm good with that, but I have this whole other, you know, in terms of my expression, very fluid. So the minute I admitted that to myself for the first time, the liar came up. Like, no, 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 that's not okay. Bad, wrong, shameful, not okay. Right, and so I'm like, okay. But there had been a crack, right? Little crack, something had started. And so after that moment, anytime I would see a woman who looks like me now, well, first of all, I would be scared of her, but I would also think to myself, I wish I had the guts. I wish I had the guts to express myself that way. Kind of a little clue, maybe. Years go on, years go by, and I'm working for Sonoma County as a social worker, and it was Halloween, and we knew how to party on Halloween. So my whole unit was going to dress up as a zombie ghost town. We were all going to be dead zombie cowboys. And my boss was supposed to be the sheriff, but she had to go out of town, so she asked me to be the sheriff. And I said, okay, I mean, my boss is telling me I have to be the sheriff. Okay, I'll be the sheriff. So I got all my, and we think of sheriffs as, you know, dressing male. So I got all my clothes. I got my vest and my badge and my hat and put a little mustache on, and I sauntered on into work. And all my coworkers, who are all like straight, cisgender, we say, people who, you know, their gender of birth matches their expression, you know, all my like regular old coworkers are all going, I don't know what it is, but you look really good as a dead zombie sheriff dude. And so for me, it was like my magic feather, right? That was like my bridge from the liar to the truth, that I could own this, right? And that day and that experience led to this series of revelations, like, well, wait a minute, gender, how we express gender in society is made up. Like, little boys aren't born wearing little boy clothes, and little girls aren't born wearing little girl clothes, but we think of it as somehow like biological, how we express our gender. And I was like, right, these aren't even men's clothes, they're just clothes that I like to wear, and this is how I like to express myself. So it was this whole big revelation. And so when we saw Dumbo, my big takeaway was that thing that the liar gets activated about, thing or things that we tell ourselves that we have shame about, it's often the source of our greatest strength. It's like a little ding, 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 look here, kind of like when Melissa's saying, look on the flip side, right? So Dumbo, with those ears, he could fly. I mean, that thing that he had so much shame about was this source of an amazing gift. And for me, when I started to express my authentic gender identity internally and expression externally, I found reserves of strength and softness, both, that I had never known before when I owned that whole spectrum. So how do we get there? How do we get to that place of that shame to freedom? Well, again, I look to Dumbo for my answers. So one is finding those bridges. We find those bridges from shame to freedom, right? Our magic feathers. And there are some wonderful magic feathers that we have here in terms of meditation, wonderful place to get clear of the lie and come to the truth. Prayer, affirmations, community where we can remind ourselves of the truth, right? So we find those places that can be magic feathers for us. That's one. Two, we look to allies. Sometimes unexpected allies, because if you think about Dumbo, Timothy, the elephants and mice are not supposed to get along, right? They're supposed to be kind of enemies, elephants are scared of mice, all that kind of stuff, but Timothy ended up being his unexpected greatest ally. And for me, it was my coworkers, actually, my straight cisgender coworkers, who were actually the most supportive of me, even more than some of my friends in the gay community. So, unexpected allies. Now, we can have allies that are expected as well, although sometimes we have people we wish were our allies and we want them to be our allies and they're kind of not actually our allies. So it's kind of getting clear on where's my support coming from. So that's two. We have our magic feathers, we have our allies, and three, we have the love of the divine. And in Dumbo, this is represented in Mrs. Jumbo. Because you remember, she didn't even see a problem. She was the one who was like, there is no problem with Dumbo. Dumbo is beautiful, just as he is, right now. That's the truth. And I know for me, being in spiritual community helped me own my truth, my beauty. There's a Ricky Byers Beckwith song that says, "No mistakes have been made in God." And when I heard that, it went right to the core of this particular issue. It was another magic feather for me. No mistakes have been made in God. So before I go, I want to just ask you some questions. When you think about that part or parts of yourself where the liar gets activated, perhaps from time to time, are you willing to look for and use magic feathers? Be it prayer, be it meditation, be it affirmations, be it whatever Spirit wants to guide you to, music. Are you willing to open to the support of allies, including unexpected allies? And 3, are you willing to open to the love of Spirit? Because when you're loving this part of yourself, you're loving God. You're loving God. I invite you to take a breath. Inhale, exhale with a sigh. Again, inhale. Exhale with a sigh. Well, this is going to lead you in one more exercise to ground this truth.
Please repeat after me. Today, I set myself free from shame.
I set myself free from shame.
If I feel ashamed, I know I am believing a lie.
I know I am believing a lie.
From this day forward, when I feel bad, I will search out the lie I am believing. Then I will find the truth on the flip side. And I will tell myself the truth. Until I master believing it. I open to finding bridges. From the liar to the truth. I open to receiving support. From friends and unexpected allies. And I open to receiving love from the divine. I stand in unapologetic confidence. Nice. I stand in unapologetic confidence. Knowing the truth of my divine nature. And knowing that truly, I am all that. Because I rock. And so it